नमस्कार दोस्तों, मेरा नाम नितिन है और ये जो आज का हमारा सेशन है ये कॉर्पोरेट वेलनेस के बारे में है। तो मैं आपको बता दूं कि इस सेशन को ऑर्गेनाइज कर रहे हैं हम एक पहला सुख इनिशिएटिव के तहत। पहला सुख इंडिया वेलनेस मूवमेंट इज एन इनिशिएटिव बाय इंडी फैमिली फाउंडेशन। Our objective is to support the health and the holistic wellness of millennials in India and Indian diaspora affected by the pandemic. Our mission is to bring the best of East and West lifestyle practices to impact 5 million people in the year by the year 2025. The practices and knowledge we are sharing are evidence-based, research-driven, and with experts from behavioral, business, spiritual, lifestyle, and medical industries. To make it relevant and reachable, we use digital media, Indianized vernacular content, and the experiences of wellness ambassadors and health heroes. We craft tailor-fit programs for specific groups and needs and lay significant emphasis on leveraging technology and strategic partnership with organizations that have the expertise and experience in the focused areas of operations. We launched this initiative on June 21, 2020 on the International Day of Yoga. And since then, via various webinars and podcasts, we have touched nearly 30,000 people. Let me talk about this session. Global and local businesses, along with their value chains, are being hit severely by this COVID-19 crisis at scales that were never foreseen or imagined. From operations to revenues to employees to partners, vendors, customers, clients, everything seems to crumble, jolting the confidence of business leader. In this, if this wasn't enough, the on-ground medical health chaos, disruption, and unfortunate personal losses are taking a toll the emotional well-being of this human race. In these trying times, there is a strong need to reinforce the belief of overall corporate wellness so that business leaders take control of their venture with more zest and verve. This session is crafted exclusively for business leaders and CXOs to learn and gain the experience from Aroop Zutshi, who is passionately transforming the lives of the future leaders. Let me also give you a small introduction about our speaker. Mr. Aroop Zutshi is based in Mountain View, California, and sits on the corporate board of Frost & Sullivan. As the global president and managing partner with over 30 plus years of experience, Aroop has worked with world's leading businesses and advised many C-suite executives on identifying a growth pipeline and investing in lucrative growth opportunities. He is a sport enthusiast, an avid traveler, and a food lover, and a true visionary whose passion is to mentor and nurture future leaders. He is a strong believer in the gen of generosity. Aroop advocates and inculcates a strong emotional quotient to transform life. I have worked with Aroop sir for the initiative to support our alma mater, Birla Institute of Technology, Mesra, and we were part of the founding team of Vitosa Global Alumni Association, which connects nearly 25,000 plus BI10 all across the globe. Sir, let's begin. And really, I just want to have your overview about this whole situation. What do you feel about it? Aroop sir.
Yeah, thank you, Nitin. I really appreciate, and namaskar to everybody on the call. Obviously, these are trying times, no doubt. We have seen a significant upsurge in the pandemic levels, the infection levels, and obviously some countries are facing tremendous crisis, especially a country like India. Obviously, it's a difficult situation today, but as with all situations, no situation is permanent. I know the human race has the tenacity, has the power to overcome many challenges. We have already done that, and history has shown that we have changed, we have pivoted, we have transformed every time there was a crisis of massive magnitudes, whether induced by people or induced by Mother Nature. We have always been able to handle it. So I know for sure that we will overcome this challenge, but at the same time, I do know that this challenge is real. This challenge is very painful. This challenge will disrupt life across the diaspora, across the Indian subcontinent, but I do believe that we will come out of it. But while all this is happening, I think as you rightly mentioned, business leaders have a very big and a very important role to play. And that role is to manage, to inspire, to build confidence with their company executives, with the people in their value chain. So the people they touch, I think it's important to keep that hope alive, provide the necessary support, whether it be financial support, whether it be mental support, whether it be spiritual support. That support is important. And the more we communicate with our teams, the more we communicate with our value chain, and support them, I think there's a very high chance that we will come out of this very, very quickly. My advice to everybody today is very simple, an advice that you've heard many times over in the last 12 months, 15 months, and that is the golden rule of WWW. I know we all go on the internet every day. We see that term every day, but we need to make sure we implement that with great levels of discipline. So wash your hands, wear a mask, and watch your distance. If you do these three fundamental things, I do believe it will have a profound effect in the way this virus will move from one person to another person. And when that stops, it reduces the constraints, in the ecosystem, and people will begin to be able to manage this process moving forward. I think we did very well as a country last year, especially India. And we saw the impacts of that. I think we can do that. I know it's a short-term pain, but overall, over the long term, I think it will be a great recovery and a great success story. So hang in, let's work together, let's support each other, and I hope we will come out of this very, very soon. So that's where I see right now, Nitin, all that is going on.
So, like, what is corporate wellness in layman's term? Like, we are talking about it, but still, from the perspective of a mentor, from the perspective of a business leader, I really want you to focus on what it specifically means and why it is important for business leaders to prioritize it in current time.
So, at the end of the day, Nitin, we're all human beings, and our physical health, our mental health, our social health, what I like to call as mind, body, soul. All these three things have to be connected and have to work in a in a unison format, so that as individuals, as employees, as leaders, we perform the task that is ahead of us. So to me, corporate wellness in its simplest form is the health, wellness, and well-being of individuals. If we are healthy, mind, body, soul, if we are well, we feel good, then we perform well. We perform well at a professional level, we perform well at a personal level. So if we can bring that element into the corporate world, which is where we all collectively spend a serious amount of time during a day. In fact, I always tell people, when you talk about family, I say my family is people at work, because I spend anywhere between 10 to 14 hours with them, and I tend to spend less time with my direct family. So what that tells you is, the more that family is healthy, is well, and has a great lifestyle, the better it is for the corporate to perform and deliver the results, but more importantly, provide the impact that it is supposed to provide. Because today, most corporates that are successful have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose of why you exist as an organization, bigger than the top line revenues, bigger than the profit, then I think you're missing a huge part of how you can get people to perform. You need that. And that's what corporate wellness is all about. And it's becoming equally important in today's day and age, because if you look at large organizations, they have established protocols. They have an HR department, they have a wellness department, and they follow through that very well. But if you look at, for example, companies that are starting now, or are emerging companies, or are startups, we see a lot of activity in the startup world. They don't have established protocols. They are operating in a survival mode. They want to get things done. They want to create a product, put it out there in the market, and see if that clicks with their consumers or customers. But the important part is, oftentimes they miss this this balance that I've talked about, which is the spiritual mental health balance. And because of that, there's sometimes a trust gap that exists between the leadership in a company, startup or corporate, established corporates, and their people and their employees. And that's where you need to bring in cognitive trust as well as emotional trust. And that's why corporate wellness has become even more important today, because you're dealing with people, and pandemic has accelerated the need for corporate wellness to become part of every organization, no matter which industry you're in, no matter the size of business, no matter which geography you are in. This is now a very important and integral part of every organization moving forward.
So, can you just help us in identifying 3 to 5 things which businesses can incorporate to develop this culture or this health and wellness, a holistic health and wellness, not just for themselves but also for their team members?
Yeah, I think obviously there are very structured processes, of course, companies can follow. But let me make it sound a little more realistic, because I think it starts from us as leaders. You as a leader, I as a leader, and of course there are so many leaders. We don't walk the talk. We talk about corporate wellness, but we actually don't walk the talk. What does that mean? The first thing we do is, and pandemic has made this even more difficult now, is we reach out to our employees at the worst possible time. We call them at 7 in the morning, we call them at midnight. We expect that they are available anytime, anywhere. And that's where fundamentally we go wrong. We as leaders don't understand how to create this life balance. We talk about it, but we don't create it. Right. I'm myself guilty of sending emails to people over the weekend. And I expect them to have it ready by Monday morning. What do you think is going to happen to those people? They're working over the weekend. They're working late hours. Right. It becomes even more difficult for women employees who have multiple roles to play besides working in corporate. Oftentimes they have to work at home as well. A lot of times they have to work at home a lot more than work-wise. Kids are at home, families at home to provide for them. So you can see there is so much stress in the system, and that begins from leaders. So the first thing I encourage all the leaders to do is to say, you know what, help create that culture of work-life balance. Stop doing things. Don't expect people to be available all the time. Okay. Allow people to learn to unwind. Allow people to sleep. Nitin, I will tell you, there is so much research being done on sleep and so much negative impacts of lack of sleep that is causing even more stress in the system today. In fact, recent research, if you look at the Journal of Medicine, you will find that people who don't have enough sleep are now beginning to suffer in their work output, are beginning to suffer in their ability to retain things. Dementias and other mental diseases are coming in at a much earlier age than in the past. So sleep deprivation is a big issue. And I know with so much connectivity, sometimes people don't realize that sleep is an important part. In fact, I should share this one story with you. I had attended an event on corporate wellness. Okay. And there was a doctor up on the stage, and we were about 500 people in the audience. I was one of them. And I would say the average age of everybody there was probably 50 plus. So let's put it that way. Okay. I looked one of the younger guys there, by the way. So they were much older people. And what was interesting is he got up and said, how many of you take meds? And everybody was looking at each other. And, meds is the short form for medicine, right? At least in the US. Yes. And so he said, meds, how many of you take meds? And so, slowly, the hands started to go up. And by the next 10 seconds, 20 seconds, pretty much every hand was up. I put my hands up as well because, I take some meds. And he said, no. I'm not talking about the medicines you take. Let me explain what meds is. And the first thing he said, M stands for meditation. Is everyone doing 15 minutes of meditation per day? How many of you do 15? And only 10% of the hands went up.
Hmm.
E stands for exercise. How many of you do 30 minutes of brisk exercise where your heartbeat is going up?
Hmm.
Hands reduced even more.
Hmm.
And then he said diet. How many of you make sure that you eat, 4 small meals a day and manage your diet? And the last one he said, for which he paused, he said, how many of you in this audience sleep, S for sleep, for 8 hours a day? There was not a single hand that went up. And that just tells you how important. And he said, of all these 4 acronyms, the one that is the most important acronym is the sleep, because that's under your control. Rest is not necessarily under your control, but sleep is under your control. And then, of course, he gave a lot of ways of how to disengage with the outside world and get to sleep at a reasonable time. And of course, he said one of the big culprits of lack of sleep or limited sleep today is these mobile phones and the lights and we take these mobile phones to bed now. And that's what's causing a lot of disruption, distraction, and lack of sleep and sleep apnea. So he was saying this is very important. So to your point, I think as leaders, we need to understand this. We need to understand how to make sure that our teams have that time to unwind. So stop connecting with team members on the weekends. Allow them to do what they need to do, unwind, spend time with family, sleep. At the least, they should sleep. And those are some very important things we can start off with. Number two is give tasks that are reasonable. Yes, we want everything to be done yesterday. And especially if you're in a startup world, it needs to be done now. Every time there's a sense of urgency. But yes, I understand, we agree there are financial requirements, investors want results. But as leaders, this is our job to focus on the health and wellness and well-being of our people. Okay, that's our job. No investor will tell you that. You have to be the gatekeepers of that. Okay, and you need to make sure you provide that freedom so people can understand. So that's the other thing. Communicate. I'll tell you, Nitin, we are living in this world of virtuality. This is the new megatrend. The new megatrend is that of virtuality, which means our life will now be live and virtual. This is the way the future. We have pivoted as a human race, just like we have had previous pivots. And the most recent big one was 9/11, when we all pivoted and we saw how it changed our travel. This is what's happening with this. And that is why we need to allow people to do what they need to do. So I think some of these behavioral trends, behaviors, actions that we take as leaders is very important. And if we can do that consistently and send that message to our teams, I can tell you that will begin to change the culture. One thing I would recommend to everybody is, countries like Bhutan do a health and happiness index. I want to ask all the leaders on the call that are listening to this message or are reviewing this later, how many of you do a health check of your employee? How many of you ask this question, are you happy? Most leaders don't do it. And that's what I would say. You want a cultural change, ask that as the first question. Are you happy? Okay, what will make you happy? What can we do as a corporation to make our people happy? And check the happiness index. There's standard formats available. Run a survey, gauge the temperature, gauge what people are feeling. And when you get happy people, companies do very well. When people are not happy, companies don't do very well. And they don't do the work that is supposed to happen from a purpose standpoint. So I think those are things that you have to do, and you have to stay very consistent with that for an overall cultural change, because cultures don't happen overnight, Nitin. They take a while, but to change, behaviors have to continue on an ongoing basis, and leaders have a big responsibility in this, in my opinion.
So, जैसे अभी क्या मतलब like in current scenario, like India is not a like a work from home oriented country. It's an amalgamation of a lot of industries. Manufacturing is there, then IT is there, then a lot of supply chain management, logistic is there. So it's not a company which is basically just doing the IT or digital or blue collar job, right? Every sort of job is there in this country, and this whole shift is happening where people are moving digital, people are going for work from home basis. Initially all the people with whom you have worked in offices, you know them as person, right? मतलब किसी मीटिंग में भी आप बात कर रहे हैं, बात करने के बाद में उसके बाद में थोड़ी देर आप 5-10 मिनट एक दूसरे से बात करते हैं, तो ओवर द पीरियड जैसा आप बता रहे हैं कि कल्चर बिल्डअप होता है, लोग एक दूसरे को जानते हैं। लेकिन जब वर्क फ्रॉम होम जैसा एक इकोसिस्टम बन रहा है जिसके अंदर और नए लोग हायर हो रहे हैं और नए लोग उस कस्टम का पार्ट बन रहे हैं, और वो फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी ऑफ वर्किंग है कि एनीबडी कैन बी एट एनी लोकेशन, दे कैन वर्क बिकॉज एवरीथिंग इज गोइंग डिजिटल. So how to create a culture when this whole thing is going digital, this whole thing is going virtual, and a lot, well, the lack of touch and feel is there, and at the same time how to balance your personal life when you are doing work from home.
Yeah. Yes, it is a challenge, Nitin, and I've seen it myself. Cultures get, developed when you see people, I call them in 3 dimensions. Right now, we are all seeing people in 2 dimensions, right?
Right.
And I remember phones used to be the 1 dimension.
Right.
But it is the reality. And as I said earlier, that I don't think you're going to see an overall change. The percentages will change, obviously, as we begin to get this pandemic under control. We will start to go more outdoors. We'll start to go to work a lot more than we've done currently. So I think that will begin to happen. But that, I think, is a good 2 to 3 years away when things will begin to look normal. And the normal that we know of was pre-COVID days, right?
Right.
But I think there'll be a new normal, and the new normal will be a blend of both.
Right.
But I think, like I said, for this culture to happen, increased communication will be very important. In the past, when you were in an office environment, you bumped people at coffee stations, at pantries, you go out to lunch with them, and you start to build networks, and the culture begins to form. But I think in a virtual world, you have to do a lot more. And one big part is communication, to stay in touch with your employees. Do a weekly touch point. Like in my own organization, every week we bring everybody together and we have a session where we're just having fun. We call it a fun engagement session. We don't talk about business. We don't talk about any specific issue. It's an open issue, and we just have fun. People share their stories. People talk about what happened, an episode, an interesting thing, a new food they tried, a new cooking they did, things like that. I think that's how we start to connect with people. These were things we did in life, and when we met people in person. Now we need to do it a lot more virtually. Yeah, and that's how cultures start to set in. Cultures also start to set in where certain habits are maintained with greater levels of discipline. Right. So when you're in a virtual world, you have to be a lot more disciplined. And if you follow that, that begins to get that culture moving in the right direction. And it's a new culture. It won't be the old culture like we used to be, that we were used to. I think it'll be a new culture moving forward. But I think high levels of connectivity will play a very important role in setting the right culture. Yeah. And like I said, a total employee engagement is very important in this process, right? So no matter who it is, and this is what technology allows us to do today, is no matter who is, wherever they are, we are able to connect with them, right? Which was sometimes difficult in the past for travel reasons, for time zone reasons. Today we can connect with a lot more people, especially if you're a global entity like my company is. How do you connect with people in every part of the world, in every culture? Today I can do it. I could not do it in the past because I had to physically travel there. So there are pluses, there are minuses with every situation we deal with. I think we have the opportunity of building it through more communication. And that's how I have personally worked with our teams to ensure that a new culture, which is a culture that we live in today, which is a blend of both, is what we follow. So I think those are things I would recommend: is increase your communication, bring some fun elements into your conversation, make it easy, use certain themes, gamify your connection with your people, right? Continuously inspire them, align them with the vision of your company, right? So run short courses with the people on the phone or on platforms like Zoom, and get people more engaged. And I'm confident when you do that, you can see a culture shift. So, I like to say, invest in your employees, invest in their future. So one thing that I've done in my company is done a 5 to 10 minute touch point with all our employees worldwide. Now, what does that mean? So for about 10 minutes, we actually provide an insight. I share a story on leadership. I share a story on our product. I share a story on our frameworks, on our vision, any number of things. 10 minutes. And then after that, I give them a small quiz. Okay. So as soon as the session is over, a quiz goes out to them. That takes them between 2 or 3 minutes, 3 questions, boom, boom, boom. And within 15 minutes, they are done.
Right.
So I make sure that the employees are all engaged, they're learning, they are also inspired, and more importantly, they stay connected. 15 minutes. And that's what I like to call as investing in the future of your company, investing in your people, aligning your people to the overall corporate vision and mission. That's something I would encourage everybody to do.
My takeaway will be like communicate more, make sure that you bring that fun element even if you are having a meeting, but make sure that you ask about the well-being and wellness of those people, treat them not just as your employees but as your family members. And all in all, the most important part is upgrade them, because if you are not upgrading them, if you're not investing on their skills, eventually if you do, it's a win-win situation for both of you.
That's right. That's correct.
It's
Yes,
like
absolutely. No doubt.
one part of that question was how to maintain that thin line of doing work from home and maintaining that work and home thing together.
No, as I said, working from home was very cool when it all started, because it was something new for all of us, right?
Right.
And so it was a novelty, it was fun, it was exciting. Oh, I can, wear my shirt, but I can be in shorts, all that, things that we all went through. But I think, like I said, that working balance that we need to create again starts from leaders. I might repeat myself a little bit, is to make sure that as leaders, we are careful in how we manage people's time. At the same time, as employees and as leaders ourselves, we must also know when to start, when to finish, and stay very disciplined in how we manage our day. Because even as leaders, I need to have a work-life balance, just like you need to have as a leader. So making sure that we start at a good time and we finish at a good time and disengage ourselves, I think are again very important elements. Because as I said to you, this is not short term. I think we as a world, as a human race, have pivoted, where pivot means we will be operating in this format in the future. Now, obviously, Nitin, not every industry is suited for virtual work.
Absolutely.
It's just not the reality, right? If you're in the service industry in particular, if you're working in, say, travel, tourism, hospitality, the food industry, these are places where you have to physically be there. You have to be physically present in a manufacturing unit. Obviously, for that, you have to leave your home, you have to get out, you have to go out there. And that's where, safety measures become very important, at least in the short term, till we as a human race figure out how to handle this crisis, one. Number two, our bodies, our systems will hopefully attain that level of what can I say, their equilibrium, so that they can handle these kinds of viruses, because our system is currently in shock because we've never handled this virus before, getting that level of immunity, herd immunity that we've heard about. So I think for that, I will say, safety measures need to be provided by leaders so that these individuals can go to work, social distancing norms be maintained within this, making sure that every employee in that factory or manufacturing unit follows with great level of discipline the WWW rule that I mentioned earlier. I think if you do that, I think there is a very high chance that you will be able to contain, control, and eventually eliminate this crisis that we are all currently facing. But for industries where we can afford to do virtual, I think this trend will happen. And I think what's gonna make it even more interesting is technology will enable it even more in the future.
So just to add in the same line of question, I think like it is not just we are talking about the present, we are also talking about the new normal. We are talking about the future. So I just want to share two things which I recently came across. I came across by this initiative by Zoho founder, and they are creating these farms where people are working and living together. At the same time, I was reading an article by Mr. Nitin Kamath, who is founder of Zerodha. He's talking about that the new normal in the coming year or in future will be like people are opting, like if given chance as part of a survey, like people if given chance, like they would permanently like to have work from home and would like to move to smaller cities. So what's your thoughts about it, considering definitely there are industries which can't be moved, but these industries which are moreover can be driven or transformed digitally, what will be the future and how it should be?
Yeah, I think clearly industries that are very are digitally enabled and can use digital technologies to get the job done, and that includes professional services companies, healthcare industry workers, especially doctors, specialists. We're already seeing a lot happening in the digital health space, for example. If you look at software developers, supporters for IT systems, yes, I think that's very clear. Those industries, those segments of markets are clearly ones that will see a massive shift virtually. And I think some of those will probably move to a permanent work from home type of system. But I think what I will say is, and we touched on this through our culture discussion, is
Right.
I think companies, while will be okay for many employees to work from wherever they like to work from,
Right.
and that could be, like you said, it could be B towns, C towns, it could be from different geographies, different countries, right? There are nations in the world that were so dependent on tourism, for example, travel and tourism,
Right.
various countries in the Caribbean islands, etc., Barbados or any of these, Jamaicas. What they have done actually is they're giving people the ability to come and do what they call as stay and vacation, staycation is what they call it. So you can come, you can live in their island, you can enjoy, look at the, be on a beach and yet do your work. So they're creating fun in what you do. So I think these things will happen. And one thing we have learned through this experience of COVID is, if you have the technology, if you have a stable and you have broadband available, the reality is you can work. And this myth that, hey, I need to be in front of my clients, I need to travel millions of miles to get to a place, I think has been proven somewhat wrong to some extent, partly also because everybody had to do it. So people accepted it. Because in some cultures, especially in Asia, Latin America, for example, if you don't meet people, business doesn't get done. We know business gets done when you meet people at lunches, at dinners, at social events. But because everybody had to go through it, this became a way to do business moving forward. So I think you're right. So a lot of people will move out, a lot of people will work, they will not come back. There is no need for them to come back because they have the infrastructure at home or wherever they reside, because there's a network. They came to big cities because that's where the jobs were. But I think jobs are going to be a lot more decentralized in the future. So there was a big trend, as you know, in the past of urbanization.
Right.
I think you heard me say that people were coming into big cities,
Right.
and big cities were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? But I think what's now going to happen is there'll be some level of de-urbanization. A lot of people will be moving out to B towns, C towns, because they can do it, work can get done. And so what that does also, Nitin, is when urbanization happened, new business models emerged. With de-urbanization, new business models will emerge as well. So a lot more opportunities will come in. But I think I expect most corporates that will that at one time made declarations that people can work from home all the time. I think will shift their thinking from that stance to saying, you know what, you work now, whatever works for you, which means total flexibility. We will have an office. May have a smaller office, but come when you want to. It's a hot desk. You book yourself a place. You come, you use, and you can work from home. Right. Working from home, which was a taboo in the past, means if you're working from home, you're not working, you're having fun. I think that's gone. I think people have realized. In fact, if you study outputs from most companies, you will find that productivity has actually gone up. People have delivered more in terms of outputs during this pandemic time. Yeah. So I think there's enough research, enough data to show that. So I think that mindset that most leaders had, I think they have begun to shift. So I see future, as I look into future of work, with big technologies coming in related to, of course, 5G and AR, VR, and so many different technologies, all these digital platforms like the ones that we are using right now, all becoming very easy to access, very affordable, means by definition, we will have this blend. And we have to be ready for that because our employees are no longer going to be available in one location. Absolutely. Our employees are going to be available all across the world now. So your employee pool as a leader is no longer people in a city. In your case, you live in the fantastic city of Jaipur. Your employees are no longer Jaipur. Your employees are global now. Right. So you might even get a skill. And what does that mean? You can get your job done more effectively, faster, cheaper, okay, and of very high quality. And that's the beauty about this mix and blend that we are seeing. So we have now employees that are working out of countries that we had never thought, planned, even discussed in the past. But the new recruits that we're having, the new employees that are joining, are from various parts of the world. Kazakhstan, for example, I would have never thought that we would employ somebody from Kazakhstan working in our American operations. But we've done it because the person had incredible talent, which is exactly what we needed. And they were able to do it. And they're happy because they're in their home country and they are able to deliver value in their own comfort. And we get what we need. Everybody wins.
So on the same line, like there are some questions from the people who registered for your event, and those are like some quick questions. I really want you to answer them. But before we move into that segment, I have one last question from you. In this whole genre, like as a leader, as a person who is living in California, how do you see India coping up with this whole pandemic? What will be the future of the economy, and how MSME are going to play their role in this future shining India moment? And I don't know how it is from the outside, but still your perspective will definitely help a lot of people to plan ahead.
Yeah. So I think the first thing I would say is don't, to everybody, of course, when you're in crisis, people are, they're worried, there is fear, there is a loss of hope, there is a feeling of uncertainty. I mean, these are natural human reactions that people go through, emotions they experience. So my first message to everybody, and I say this with complete sincerity, is don't lose hope. As human race, if you study the history, as I mentioned even a little bit earlier, we have managed every revolution and we have managed every major geopolitical crisis, right? And we have pivoted. We have come together. I mean, one best example I can give you today, we're talking about vaccines. We're talking about multiple types of vaccines coming from multiple parts of the world.
Right.
It used to take anywhere between 10 years to 15 years to develop a vaccine. That's been the history. It's taken us 30, 40 years in the past to eradicate some of the most dangerous of diseases, cholera, smallpox, typhoid, you name it. And we've had so many more casualties in the past every time we had a pandemic of this magnitude. But look at what's happened in the last 10, 12 months. Within 7, 8 months, the world came together and put their mind together and developed a vaccine. Not one, multiple vaccines. Vaccines that have had a tremendous efficacy. So not only a vaccine was developed, a vaccine was tested and was put in people's arms in a matter of 8, 9 months. This is never heard of before. And now we can do it. So imagine the progress as human race we have made in putting a vaccine in front of human beings. I think that is a big achievement. So what does that tell you? That there is hope, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We will come out of this. What this has also done, to your second part of the question, is obviously opened up a lot of opportunities. The reality, Nitin, is every industry has been affected. I don't think you can say that there is any industry that has escaped the impact of COVID. Obviously, some have had tremendous net negative impact. Some have had some supremely positive impact. Industries, companies, corporates, startups, people in the food industry, people in the healthcare industry, people in airlines, you name it. Those that were digitally prepared and had made digital as a big part of their strategy moving forward have had minimal impact. In fact, most of those companies have seen their business actually grow during the pandemic. And if Q1 of this year is any indication, I can tell you most economies worldwide will see a recovery, with some growing significantly fast in 2021. Q1 has been a great quarter for many economies worldwide, and I think we'll see it bumping even more in Q2. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that will come out for MSMEs, new ways of thinking. Making digital part of it is, I think, crucial. If this has not given people a wake-up call that you need digital both inside the company and outside the company. What do I mean by inside? Everything within the organization needs to be digitized as quickly as possible. Your systems, your processes, your approval mechanisms, move everything digital. Pen and paper days are long gone. Store all your data on cloud. It's safe, it's secure. Then you move to external. Get your client interaction, customer interaction through digital platforms, digitally enable it. And when you do that, you're able to reach customers, not just in your geography, but worldwide. And that's how people have to start thinking now, that your market is no longer a domestic market. The moment you are online and you are digitally enabled, to me, you're a global company. You don't have to be physically present anymore in every geography of the world. You could be in one country and you could be selling your products in every part of the world. And that's where the definition of global has also changed and will continue to change in the future. So what that tells me is big hope, big opportunities in the future. Will India come out of this? I absolutely believe that. I am so convinced. Yes, this is a massive crisis, but as a country, as a nation, India has gone through these crises in the past of different magnitude, but we've gone through it and we have come out, very well, and we will. We've got the technology. Don't forget, India is the largest producer of vaccines in the world. That's what India can do. And so, yes, it does need raw materials. India has to strike certain agreements with nations like the United States, with which it is extremely friendly now, is to get those so that more vaccines can be produced. That is something that has to be done at a national level. There has to be a national strategy for it. And it's got to be done at a war footing, at an emergency level. If we put our mind to it, anything is possible in India. We have limited infrastructure, but we have enough infrastructure to manage this crisis and bring it under control. And if we do that, I'm quite confident we'll get out of this in not too distant future. So remain positive as leaders. And I think this is where we can play a very important role. We don't have to wait for our political leaders, our governments at the federal level or state level or city level to guide us. We can influence 20, 30, 50, 100 people. That in itself is a big difference. If all leaders, every business leader does that, I can guarantee you we will overcome this in a very short order. Being flexible with our team, giving them that feeling of security, hope, support them financially, support them socially, mentally, I think can make a huge difference. So that's my message to leaders. So don't be a victim. Pick up this baton and drive it and own it and make it happen. Don't wait for everybody else. You do your job, rest will happen on its own.
So my takeaway from this question definitely will be, it's like amazingly you have explained everything, and I think like if I really try to put it in terms of takeaways, I think the whole idea is be local, stay local, but think global, scale global. Use technology, use digitalization to transform your business. Definitely, if you could be a conventional business, but the time is there, future is there. If you can transform yourself, you will be leader of the race, you will be the pioneer of the race, right?
That's right.
I think like it's been the wonderful session, and I think a lot of people will take a lot of takeaways. And I think most importantly, the emerging businesses or the new sort of startups or MSMEs, I think it will be a very beneficial session from how to incorporate not just the corporate wellness, but how also to sustain and grow. I just want to take a few minutes more time and just want you to answer quickly the few of the questions which people have asked. Uh, and I think like if you can just answer them point to point, it will be really helpful to people because these are very specific questions from people. So there is a question from Mr. Anurag Sharma, who runs a coaching institute. He said how to stabilize his business, considering then the footfall. Definitely the very first thing government does is stop all the schools and colleges or universities and the gathering at the places. So how the people who are into this education segment can stabilize their business?
I think at this point it's all virtual, and the way to do it is to provide total flexibility to the potential students and deliver your coaching sessions online. That's the fastest way to do it. And we've seen now in the last 12 months, students, individuals are quite open to do it. I do coaching sessions with our clients today. My business has actually grown. We're connecting with more and more people because today they don't have to physically come in. My session is very targeted. For about an hour, I can get it done. So I would say go online. That's your future, not now, but in the future as well.
So next question is from Mr. Anshul Agarwal, who is a chartered accountant. His question is, like the biggest problem which the businesses are suffering is lack of working capital, because since like the sale is not there, they are not having the enough liquidity or the working capital to keep their businesses functional. So how to address that?
Yeah, so I think obviously depending on what businesses you are in, you have to manage your variable cost. I mean, you have to tailor your business, tailor your economics of the business to what is coming into the system, right? Because as a small business, that is how you will manage your A minus B type of situation. So you'll have to manage your costs, especially your payroll cost, which oftentimes is the largest cost in many companies, vendor costs. And one of the ways to do it will be to create a system where everybody in the organization works at a certain level of maybe compensation. And then, as the company starts to perform better, they can get back their compensation. They can be even rewarded more if you do better. So create a system where compensations are adjusted to the new realities in terms of income. And then you scale this up and down based on the company performance. So, and be transparent, show them what you're doing. Then you will get your employees to buy into it. And in the process, you can keep your business alive and thrive. At the same time, I would say, work with your vendors, work with your supply chain people to see how best you can manage your cash flow with them, delayed payment terms, pay in installments, again, calibrated to your level of income. If you manage that process well, I think you can easily tide this wave, which I think is short term. because eventually you will get out of it. And then look at some new business models. What can you do online, digital, that can give you that additional income? So think outside the box to say, how can I make my business more digitally enabled so I can access more customers? I referred that today you can be a global company without actually being global. Well, are your customers beyond your current levels? And if you can do it digitally, that gets you additional revenues, reduces your burden, and allows you to survive and thrive.
So I also would like to add in your answer, I think one of the fantastic thing which helped in my business, I remember attending your session last year and you were explaining about this phenomenal idea of growth pipeline engine, which is created by Frost and Sullivan. And I think we referred that pipeline and I think that helped us in so many ways to transform our business, evaluate access, do the scenario planning, and most importantly, identify in what area we can transform and some areas we need to continue because we are an established business. We can't just transform in a one single day. But I think we kept the originality or the conventional part of our business, which is manufacturing and distribution. But at the same time, we ideated that one of the amount which we are earning and one of the amount which we are willing to risk is basically need to spend on the digitalization and transformation, be it spending on technology or be it spending on the leveraging the content market in our target group. I think that helped us a lot. So if you can just, the last question will be, please explain that growth pipeline engine little bit so that people can understand more and actually can utilize it to transform their businesses.
Okay. Excellent, Nitin. So you're right. I think the first thing I always encourage every company to do is to look at the opportunity universe. So look at 6 different perspectives. That'll give you an idea of what that universe looks like. And the 6 perspectives I recommend everybody to look at is technology perspective, look at new business model perspective, look at big mega trends. I talked about urbanization, deurbanization. I mentioned virtualization. Look at customer segments that are of relevance to you, and look at geographies. And I said geographies are global by now. So look at these different perspectives. What does these perspectives do? These perspectives put in front of you a wide range of opportunities. Okay, some of them are within adjacent segments of what you're already doing. Some could be completely different. But look at those opportunities, and then what I like to call it is do a prioritization of that. Do a decision support matrix to prioritize these opportunities. How do you do that? Is to look at key elements of what you want to achieve. And that is what level of revenue impact you want to achieve, what level of cash flow you want, what level of competitive positioning you want, etc. Based on that, you prioritize these specific growth opportunities. Then, of course, you do some basic research to understand what will it take for me to get into that market. So build a go-to-market strategy around that opportunity, 1 or 2 or 3. Take finite, don't take everything because you can't do everything. You don't have the bandwidth to do it, and it can be very distracting. So make sure you pick up a few of those opportunities that are out there, and then take a deep dive, build a go-to-market strategy. Once you're ready that, yes, it makes sense, it's worth taking this to market, and there's a clear demand for it, then of course you go ahead and do what I call as an implementation plan, set up your KPIs for that. But more importantly, ensure that you're monitoring the progress, because things are changing so rapidly, right? The cliche term today, Nitin, you heard is, change is constant, right? There you go. So change is happening every day. So the more you monitor it, it will be better. But I think that rigorous process, which is what in Frost and Sullivan's term, we call it the growth pipeline engine, is what I would recommend every company follow. And do that not because you're going through a pandemic now.
Right.
Make it part of your system. So do this every year. It should be an annual exercise. Bring your entire team together, go through it, and then you can make sure this will ensure sustained revenue growth, profitable growth in the future for your company. So that's what we recommend to every client of ours.
So I remember there is the webinar which we have attended about this whole growth pipeline. I think that is available on internet. So definitely I'll try to find the link and I'll put in the description of this whole webinar so people can refer it in detail. I think moreover, this been a very wonderful session. I really wanted to ask more question from our audience, but I think like this is something where we can build up on next. After this webinar on the importance of corporate wellness, how as leaders we need to evolve, and then how we also need to evolve our businesses, transform our businesses. Once people will be aligned and we will be having more questions, definitely I would like to arrange an executive masterclass with you where one-to-one people can ask you question and you can give them specific answers. But for now, I think it's time, and I think I really want to talk more and more and like just try to grasp all the knowledge you have and try to share it with all the people. But you are being like very gracious and very helpful in all the possibilities of how businesses can evolve, how we as startup leaders can evolve. For me, you are my mentor, and I think I couldn't be more grateful to you for your valuable time and all the knowledge and experiences which you have shared with us. Thank you so much, sir, from my side. Uh, Really wish to talk more and more about it, and let's hope that others will also understand the importance of forecasting things and work on them. So
That's right.
just last message to all the people who are watching this webinar.
Yeah, no, first, Nitin, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It's always a pleasure. It's my personal joy and honor to be connected with you and, of course, share my ideas. I hope it was insightful, and I hope people can draw some take advantage of this experience I have in their business. So, but again, I'll be very happy to join you again in future sessions. But again, my final message to everybody is keep hope in the center of what you're doing. Stay positive. This is the time to be positive. Stay connected. This is the time to stay connected. Provide the, potentially the mental sort of support to people. Be available and make sure that you don't lose hope, because if you lose hope, everything gets into a disarray from there on. So stay focused and drive it yourself. Take the ownership, and I guarantee you will come out of this. And finally, be safe. That's most important. Be safe, and the safer you are, safer your families, it will have a ripple effect across the country. So I wish everyone the very best, and I wish India the very best. And I can tell you, the entire Indian community in the US is praying and making sure that all of you are healthy and safe. So with that, thank you very much. And I wish everybody the very best. Thank you.